Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Advice Line live event tonight. We're hoping that some of you join us and give us some comments below. I'm Caitlin, and I'm the Advice Line's Senior Community Advisor, and I'm joined by two of our lovely community advisors today, Caroline and Gina. I will pass over to them to do a little introduction themselves. Caroline, do you want to start us?
Hi there, I'm Caroline. I work on the advice line, one of the community advisors, and I've worked with Scottish Autism for quite some time, and it's a lovely organisation to work for. And I work in the advice line, and it's great.
Gina?
Hi, I'm Gina, and I also work with the advice line, and I'm relatively new. I started in January, and it's been a great organisation to work with.
Thank you, Gina. So tonight we will be talking about supporting autistic people around communication. So we have got some questions to start us off with, but please feel free to leave some further questions in the comment if you have any questions you would like us to explore tonight on this Advice Line Live. But the first question we've had in this evening is from an autistic individual who has said that they find non-verbal cues like facial expressions difficult and confusing. How can they navigate conversations without feeling anxiety around missing something? So I wonder if we have any tips or any kind of advice for this individual around those non-verbal cues or how to kind of cope with those conversations.
Okay, so obviously this can be really exhausting for that individual, and when they're trying to attempt to interpret and sometimes replicate facial expressions. So I suppose it's making sure that you're in a safe sort of environment, and that you're with people that you're wanting to communicate with, and that can be really, really tricky. So it's using listening to sort of tone of voice that can maybe help as well, and maybe using like context as well for the cues to sort of see maybe what else is going on. But I know it can be really, really difficult to keep up with conversations, especially if you're in a noisy environment or you're not your anxiety is quite high.
Yeah. I would agree with Gina, and I think it's not even just about practice. I think it's about understanding what some of the kind of underlying issues may be, and also how we can understand those and support them. And it might be about maybe working with somebody else or working with somebody that can support them a wee bit to understand that day-to-day communication, what that looks like, and what some of the things that they could work on. And I think sometimes a wee bit of practice and maybe a bit of been able to understand what is going on, and just to kind of help with that, because it'd be good to work on what we know might some of the wee issues might be. You know, it might be, as Gina was saying, sometimes the environment can have a massive impact if there's background noise. So when you need to look at that, sometimes it's maybe processing time, and so the individual may help, maybe could be supported to understand actually they might need a wee bit more processing time, and maybe being able to let other people know that, whether it's at work or school or wherever, you know, or somebody helping them that to understand they may take longer if someone's speaking to them, or whatever, that might be helpful. And also if they've got a preferred communication method that's easier, then something like that might help, and then supplement and help with understanding the non-verbal, understanding the social bit of it as well. And I think things like anxiety come into that as well, and stress levels and how that then affects it. So although it's about communication, it's often not just that. There's other things that need to be potentially considered as well, but maybe working with somebody with that. I think it's a bit harder to do just by yourself, but maybe reaching out to somebody to give a wee bit of support, and maybe the advice line can help with that as well, perhaps.
Yeah, like Caroline says, if you want some more direct advice for yourself and we can be a bit more specific, you can get in touch with us on the advice line, and we have many ways that you can contact us. So if phone calls don't work, we do have our phone line, but we also have a live chat service as well. And we also can take inquiries via email. I would just add to what Gina and Caroline both says that, communication goes both ways, and the adapting of communication goes both ways. So actually, the non-autistic people in your life, actually, they could maybe do a bit to support around that as well, and actually putting those expectations of understanding those cues that you're struggling with. Actually, can we have conversation with those in our lives and help them understand more rather than always having to be the one that's adapting and changing. Actually, we can raise that awareness of what our needs are and how we communicate and how we express ourselves in social situations as well as autistic people. So it's a balance, and we can all adapt in our communication, not just autistic people as a whole. So thank you so much for that.
I
Caroline,
would,
just
I would, ag-
that.
I would agree, Caitlin. I think on the advice line, we get quite a lot of adults contacting us, and sometimes, as you said, when they understand that other people might not know what their needs are, and so they don't need to make all the adjustments. But as you said, if they let maybe their parent or their partner to help them understand what might help them, and sometimes they're quite surprised that other people might not know that, and so that can be really helpful. And I think that we do get quite a lot of kind of conversations like that on the advice, and it can make such a difference. Even just some small wee adjustments, it can make such a difference. But it's not always, as Caitlin said, it's not always on the individual to make all the changes. It's about how we can help others, support them as well, or family, or partners, or children as well.
I suppose it's being honest and open, but that means everybody being honest and open about how they want to communicate.
Okay, so we hope that answers that individual specific question. Our marketing colleagues will put the information of how to contact the advice line if you want to talk to one of our lovely advisors directly on a different forum than this. But if you do want to ask any questions tonight, we're here till 7:30, so please pop anything that you're wanting us to answer tonight in the comments below. Otherwise, please do reach out to the advice line if it's something a bit more personal that you want to explore one-on-one with us. We do have another pre-submitted question that I'll put to Caroline and Gina tonight. So the next question that we did have pre-submitted was from someone who is a parent of an autistic child, and they've asked, my child is currently pre-verbal. How can I support them to communicate their needs and feelings more effectively? So do we have any advice for this parent in this situation?
So it would be trying to make the environment as visual as possible. So maybe the use of photos or pictures, sometimes even maybe using symbols, but making sure that those are important and personal to that individual. So making sure that they are pictures and photos that they recognise of maybe food objects or places that they're going to. Making sure that you're consistent, and also when you're using any visuals, making sure that maybe the environment isn't sort of cluttered but sort of predictable. And then you've also got the use of like gestures, making sure you facial expressions and copying their facial expressions and gestures as well, repeating their sounds. And that can help them really feel more confident to be able to use their voice. And then you've obviously got things like maybe if you want to consider things like Makaton or Sign Along, and maybe sort of encouraging the sort of use of those as well.
Thank
But
you.
it's important that it's personal to them.
Yeah, I think is depending on the age of the child as well. I think sometimes seeking out professional support, like from a speech and language therapist, if I know it's not always available all the time, but I think sometimes having that professional input can be a good starting point, as well as what Gina was saying as well. But if every child is different, and so that once again it's that underpinning what level is what's that child's understanding, what do they respond to, what's their play skills like, what's their kind of their to and fro like their and so as Gina was saying, all the different types of communication, there's loads of options, but all the options might not be right for your individual child. So as Gina was saying, it's really, really individualized, and not all children can do all the support. So that's why it's really, I think, quite important to get it right, so the child isn't in distress if it's too complicated, too hard for them, that it's actually at their level, that they enjoy doing it, if it's pictures or whatever it is they're using. I think it's really important that it's the right thing for your child and not causing the child distress and going with it the child might like. But I also think I think professional input, like from speech language therapists, very, very important as well.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. And I think it's always, when we're talking about our feelings and our needs, it's always really important for it to be the whole family model in that. So if we're using
Yeah.
visuals, if we're using feelings charts, can everyone that's involved in that child's family unit get involved as well, so that we're modeling that actually mum feels this way as well, and gran feels this way on a certain day, and we're actually embedding that learning and making it mean something for the young person. Because I
Mhm.
think there's so much, again, put on the autistic person, but actually when we're all working together to create that support is when it works better. And it takes all that pressure off the young person and the autistic person, and actually we're all working together, and no one is the other person in the room that needs this support, because actually we will all benefit from using these strategies as a whole family unit. So I always encourage that if you've other children in the family, or even the other adults in the family, get involved in it and make it part of communication. Because if we're communicating verbally, we are all using that verbal communication. That's generally what we're doing. But if someone isn't using verbal communication, how can we get involved in the way that they communicate as well, and join in with that as well? Because actually I think that's a really meaningful part of support, is acknowledging and also adapting your approach to that, rather than always expecting someone to eventually verbalize what they're feeling, or get to that place, when actually we can also meet them in the place they are with their communication. So I think that's always something to explore as a family, as well as everyone getting involved in what works for their young person.
I think on the advice line as well, many families they speak to us about their child, and when you discuss things about communication, and you can see like a family and the individual and the progress a child has made, and sometimes when you point that out, a parent is quite surprised because they've forgotten all the hard work that they've done. And so I think it's probably quite helpful. Keep a wee note of where your child is, and actually you'll see that kind of progress. And often parents are shocked when you kind of point things out to them. So I think that really can boost a family when you can say to a parent, goodness, look at all look what the input you've put in for your child. And I think that's really helpful to support families to feel that that they are making a difference, and they're really, really supporting their child. And it's a lot of work, that it's really helpful to remind families that all that work will pay off for their child and their family.
And if they're at nursery or at school as well, to sort of share the communication styles that you're using, and vice versa, the school to be working with you, and the nursery to be working in the same way. That's really important.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point as well, Gina, about what a family might use in the home and what others might use with their child. And sometimes parents come to the advice line and they're actually not sure what their child is using in another environment, whether it's nursery or school. And I think it's always really good to get that checked out, to double check with the school and nursery, what are they using and why are they using it? And I think that's really helpful as well. And it's not unusual for different things to be used in different settings. And I think that's always an interesting conversation on the advice line with families regarding what their children are potentially doing in different settings, and what the communication supports looks like, for the child. And it's often a lovely conversation, for, I think anyway, for on the advice line.
Thank you both for your thoughts around that question. So we're about halfway through tonight already. So we're here till 7:30. So if there's anything that you want us to answer while we're on the Facebook Live tonight, please just add that to the comments below. We are keeping an eye on them if anyone has anything. And our marketing colleagues have shared the information on how to get in touch with us at the advice line. If you want to contact us directly, more privately, you can do so. on one of our open days. So please do reach out on the advice line if that's more comfortable for you. In the meantime, we're about halfway through. I will ask one of our other pre-submitted questions to our lovely advisors tonight. So the next question is another parent again, and it's about a young person again this time. And they've explained that their child scripts from TV shows, and should this be a concern for them as a parent that their child is communicating via scripting? Gina and Caroline, do you have anything around that you want to discuss?
Well, I think that's quite a positive thing, because I think it's communication, you know, and I think it's a positive communication. So, and although it's to do with thinking processes and stuff in that area, but and communication, but I think it's a positive. And you wouldn't want to stop that. You wouldn't want to curtail that or anything like that at all. I think it's a lovely, if that's where the child is, that's where the child is, and they're obviously trying to use that, and it's probably quite effective for them, you know. And you need to look at, well, what is the child, what's the purpose of that for the child? Is it to get mum and dad's attention, or mum's attention, or dad's, or whatever it is? And so probably to step back and to look at, once again, the underpinning. What's the purpose of that? Is the child enjoying it? You know, what bits are there? What is it they're doing with that? And so I think that if it was a conversation on advice line, that's what I'd be doing, kind of meandering with the family about what is it going on there, what's the underpinning stuff, and kind of looking at that a wee bit more. But I think that's a nice positive. I don't know what Gina has to say. She might have other things as well.
No. Yeah, so I would say it's the same. It's obviously sometimes used for sort of comfort and regulation. It's like a safe and predictable way of communicating. They might be using it, they might repeat at appropriate times, like if they're going on the train, like all aboard, or they might use it in unrelated situations. They might just be repeating the words that you're using. I suppose that's what you said, Caroline, was why. Maybe why are they using it? Are they trying to ask for something? Are they excited? Are they upset? Are they playing? So I suppose it's acknowledging and modeling. Maybe it's more functional use of language, but equally, not stopping it, because it's, children learn by sort of repetition, and that's why they're doing is they're repeating these languages.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think it's a really lovely thing, and actually, like Caroline said, a lot of the time when we do get things like this that are a wee bit more specific to a certain little young person, or an adult for that matter, we do like to unpack on the advice line. So we will look at a person as a person and unpack all those little reasons why, and what's the why, and what are they communicating in that moment. But I also think when people are expressing communication in that way, the scripting from TV shows and things like that, is that an interest that they enjoy? And actually, is that their way of connecting and maybe learning a little bit of that script yourself as a parent or a partner or whoever you are to that person? That could be a way of a back and forth coming of, part of the script, and it's a lovely little way to connect. And I've seen that before with young people. If you know about something they enjoy and you can interact in that way, actually that's play and that's connection, and it may look different than you're used to, but for that person it could really spark joy and connection in that moment if you do maybe yourself kind of get into that world with them of whatever it is that they're scripting from, whatever that TV show is it actually spending a little bit of time to understand what that show is that they're scripting from and learn some stuff about it, and maybe then you can prompt communication in that way as well. So that it can open a lot of doors as well for more than communication, also play and connection, and just that bond that you can build from something special like that a young person has. So
I think they sort of understand that sort of turn taking as well. If you're replying using those scripts as well.
And it's like lots of things like we've talked about today at Facebook. It's not just one thing. It's from like once an inquiry comes in, or a wee issue, or a concern, or just a person asking a question. But that one wee question doesn't always just stand alone. There's always things that come from it, or that impact on it, or we need to kind of dig around a bit to understand what's going on. So from one wee question, there's lots of things to consider. And I think certainly on the advice line, whether it's live chat, phone or emails, I think with families or individuals, that's where it's really, the advice line I think is really brilliant, because it gives an opportunity not just to give a direct answer, because it's not always about that. It's about supporting the family and supporting us to understand what's potentially what's going on, or helping a family to understand that wee presentation, and to kind of reassure a family that something's absolutely fine, it's all right, and to work with them to understand why it's okay, and or how something can be used as a bit of a springboard for, as Caitlin was saying, for, well, what's the next thing we could add to that, or how can that be expanded, or how can that be used in a really fun way, or whatever. And it is that thing about, there's always other things to consider and lots of lovely things that we could discuss. And I think that's where the advice line can be really helpful for families, is it's not about always the answer, it's about what's going on, or what else could we add to that, or help with understanding, I think.
I think it's that like sort of holistic picture that the advice line really works on, is what's going on in other areas. And I was to think of myself as like a detective, like sort of finding out, maybe asking just those questions that then maybe sparks the parent or the individual to then think a bit further about what's happening.
Yeah.
Thank you both. So we have had a comment from Dawn, who actually has shared that she did the Get Set for Autism program that we have, and she did that supported by myself, but she also then attended one of our parent programs that Caroline hosted. So Dawn's kind of had a little bit of experience with both Caroline and myself, and she's spoke really positive of that experience. So thanks, Dawn, for sharing that. But she's also kind of touched on that things are kind of struggling again for her and her son at the moment. So I would encourage Dawn, please get back in touch. Don't ever feel like because you've completed the Get Set for Autism program and you've been to a parent group that's that support over with. We always encourage people to actually reach out again, because things do change and evolve for young people and adults, and actually it might be that, yeah, the experience that you've had has worked at the time, and we've given that advice for that moment in life for you or your young person, but actually things move on. And like Dawn's saying, it's been 2 years since she's engaged in those projects that she was involved in. But it would be really good to hear from you again, Dawn, and see if we can unpack what's happening with your son at this time for him, because it has been a wee while, and they grow so much at the age that you're describing your son as. So please give us a wee call again, or a wee email, or a live chat, whatever works for you, and we'll try and unpack a little bit again what's going on for yourself and your son. The marketing team have popped that information in there if you just need a wee reminder of it. We are almost done. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I've got one more question that was pre-submitted, but we hope to hear from you, Dawn, soon about your query around your son. The last question we had pre-submitted was from an autistic person again, and they've asked, how can I help others recognize my communication style without having to constantly explain myself? So I think we've touched on a little bit about communication styles already, but this will give us a bit more chance to go a bit more in depth about how we can communicate those communication preferences maybe. So this is in relation to an adult, obviously, but it could work for young people as well, whatever we're kind of describing this evening. Gina, do you want to start us off with this
Yeah.
one?
So my first question, I think, probably back would probably be who are the others? So is it in a work situation? Is it in a medical situation? And that's something that we hear quite a lot. So I would be looking at Scottish Autism. In our team, we have our own. It's a passport. Caitlin will probably remind me of what we have, but we have actually written down how we want, how we would like people to communicate with us, and how we'd like others to communicate with us as well. So I'd be maybe looking at doing that if that was at work. If it's medical, and possibly having sort of a communication health passport, and I know we've sent out some of those to people before. So maybe also call Scotland. I was going to say that that's one of the other places that can also help with templates as well, with communication passports with the individual, depending on where they are finding it difficult to explain themselves. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks, Gina. Caroline, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, can you remind me what was the question again? Sorry, Caitlin, I'm just
No,
double checking.
I can double
But
check that for you. So it was an autistic individual had got in touch and they had asked, how can I help others recognize my communication style without having to constantly explain myself?
Okay, so if that person had live chat or emailed or phoned in as well, I think once again it'd be interesting to know when the communication has been successful. Also, when has it not quite worked and why has it not quite worked? And then I think building on that kind of knowledge as well, and what Gina was saying as well, I think it's about finding out what what the person what have the experiences been. So probably from what is inferred is that the person's probably having to try continually say if what their needs are, but actually maybe discussing with them what can we do to help that? What other supports? There's the passports. Is there other kind of day-to-day stuff that we could maybe develop with them to use more informally? There might be some apps or something. There might be something more technology-wise. Sometimes it's about looking at things, in a kind of different way to say, okay, well, what's going on and what would help you? What would they like? And often people do have an inkling of what the answer is for them. So I think it's about, like Gina and I was saying as well, I think it's about speaking to the person or whatever communication method they prefer and discussing a wee bit more about what's going on and what has been effective, ineffective, and what they think would maybe help, and then working with them regarding that as well to look at other possibilities to yeah, I think that's what I feel I would maybe kind of consider, which is very similar to what Gina was saying as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that we really strive to do as, accommodate to different communication preferences and styles. So that's why if you do want to get in touch with us, we do offer those different avenues to do that. Like I said, we have our phone line, which is more traditional, and we do get a lot of people phoning us in, but we get just as much kind of interaction in our other forms that could be written format, by email, and on the live chat as well. So you can get in touch with us in lots of different ways that hopefully one of those ways will work for you. And even if you just have an initial contact via one of those and you maybe explain a little bit what works for you, we can kind of try and adapt so that we can actually be accessible to you to communicate with us, because we want to be an accessible place for autistic people to get that advice, support, and guidance that we're providing. So please do reach out if there's anything you want to kind of unpack with us, is what I'll say, because a lot of what we've said today has been generalized, obviously, because actually we would look at that individual, like Gina and Caroline have touched on, and take that holistic approach to unpacking what we could do to better support them, and also what support could we put around someone, and a kind of wraparound approach as well we look at. It's not always just the one thing, I think, is what we often find. It's, yeah, you might be coming to us about communication, but also what is feeding into all those struggles, or what is feeding in that helps that communication piece. So it often ends up being that you might come to us for one thing, but actually we help with that unpacking, and there's more to it. And maybe it's a few phone calls or a few emails back and forth, or you might come back in a few months, or even like Dawn, who's commented, a few years' time to kind of bring it back and look again from a different angle and a different lens, because people do grow and change, and actually communication grows and changes with that. So it might be that as a young person something's worked for your child, but as they grow that will change and develop, because that's a natural part of everyone's development. We all kind of develop a style of communication as we grow anyway, and it's the same for autistic young people and adults. Those communication styles might change. So we often say if something's worked for a long time and it stopped working, that's all right. It's just about, there'll be something else that will work again for that person. So it's not about um always kind of getting down about strategies not working. It's about being consistent as much as you can with those strategies. But if something's not working, it's about accepting that it's not working maybe, and moving to the next thing as well. And I think Caroline and Gina can maybe speak to that a little bit as well.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caitlin. Yes, absolutely. And I think when we're discussing communication with families, I think you're right because you know there's kind of life stages. So like leaving school, you know, and then suddenly you're an adult and you're maybe got a part-time job or maybe got work, and then suddenly your communication needs you know, it's more difficult, it's more complicated, more complex, and parents still try to support some of that as well, or the individual might contact us in the advice line. And so I think, as Caitlin and Gina were saying, there is that kind of different stages, different needs, and as Caitlin was saying, things do change, and that's to be absolutely expected, you know. But once we've got a big change going on, it's about kind of thinking again, well, what's going on? You know, how can we support that? You know, what's working, what's not? And I think communication and expectations are different, you know, once you're leaving school and even going from primary to secondary, there's a kind of change of expectation of communication again. So there's loads of pressures put on young people and young adults as well. And you know, I think understanding that and supporting that is quite important as well. Sorry, Gina, I probably got
No,
sidetracked.
I was going to say, I think that's one of the themes that we have the most is transitions and people really struggling in the different environments where they maybe felt safe and they've people have understood their communication style and then they're moving, and that can be for any age.
Yeah.
Thank you both. So that's us at 1:30. So that was a quick half an hour, it felt like. So I hope that we have helped support around some of those conversations around communication, but please do continue that conversation with us via our advice line, which has been shared below, and it will be opened at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So if you want to get in touch, please do just give us a call, a live chat, an email, whatever works for you. And we will kind of continue that communication conversation in those spaces as well. So thanks all for joining us, and do reach out to any of our lovely advisors on the advice line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.